if you feel like a perpetual junior, constantly prompting various AI LLMs and burning through your context windows, it's because you're still not doing it the right way. You're still doing it the way it was done in 2025. And now it's 2026. And the seniority gap in AI engineering it's starting to really widen now. While most developers are stuck in a loop, learning a framework today, jumping to that LLM tomorrow, only to see that something else is pulled ahead or this has become outdated, a small group of folks are actually starting to understand the primitives of AI and becoming AI solution architects while being developers, and they're starting to pull ahead. Because they're not just chasing the latest models or the latest benchmarks, they're using the models in a way suitable to build agentic automations no matter what model is given to them. So today I'm going to walk you through the new agent skill specification, the Skills.md, and its surrounding architecture, which is an open standard that turns you from an AI prompter into an effective AI solutions architect or engineer. This is the bridge you've been waiting for because OpenAI, Cursor, VS Code, you name it, they've all started to support the agent skill specification that was originally from Anthropic to use with Claude Code. So now there's zero reason for you not to use it. There's a sad truth about AI development right now that I'm starting to observe. Most devs are burning through 90% of their context window or hitting API limits on instructions when the agent actually only needs about 5% of the information at any given time. This approach to AI engineering where you just chuck a bunch of tokens at the LLMs is frankly very inefficient. It's bloated and expensive, and it's quite amateurish these days, right? Now, in several of my past videos in this series, we talked about context rot and context management, the difference between RAG and context engineering, and all the things that Claude Code supports, plugins, slash commands, subagents, all of that. These are all just ways to control and protect the context of your agent so that the output is always exactly what you want. The agent skill specification is also originally from Anthropic Claude, but now has become an industry standard and is starting to be adopted across the board. Agent skills solves the context rot problem by giving your AI LLM of choice access to your procedural knowledge. What is that? That's basically your knowledge and the procedures that form your workflows, right? But it doesn't give it that knowledge all at one time because that would absolutely blow up the context window. Instead, it uses a technique called progressive discovery, meaning that instead of one giant prompt, you put all your procedural knowledge in one or more skills files and definitions, which could be a collection of files and folders that satisfy the skill spec, and then the LLM only loads the relevant parts and only when needed. So it doesn't pollute your context window with all sorts of rubbish and crud that may or may not be relevant. Now, this is a crucial technique, and it's critical for developing AI automations because it's much more efficient on context, but also on the wallet. We're talking about slashing your token costs, both on the thinking and on the output side, and even the input side. And that means you could cut latency by, up to 90% while actually increasing accuracy, which means you get much more mileage out of your LLMs. So let me show you how to move away from prompt engineering and towards building a standardized engine for encapsulating your procedural knowledge for AI. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how to implement the agent skill specification, specifically the Skills.md and all its surrounding folders, and we will cover how to define reusable skills that work across any agent and how to give it your procedural knowledge as a skill. Basically, you've injected your workflows into the LLM's mind, kind of like how Tang injected Kung Fu into Neo's mind in Matrix, right? It's going to be like that. Okay, let's get to coding. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reuse the same concept from the slash commands video in this series where I showed you how I created a slash command that helps me bootstrap a node project very quickly, right? And what it does is it basically does all of that standard setup step, which could take about half an hour to set up a Node.js project from scratch. And while the agent is doing that, you could just go and grab yourself a cup of tea or coffee or something. And by the time you come back, your project is done. So in 5 minutes, you would get done what would otherwise take half an hour. And you're not even doing it. You're getting the agent to do it. But that was a slash command. And a slash command in Claude Code is something where you type slash. And then after that, if you've correctly installed that slash command in Claude Code, it will pick it up and do it. So let me show you what I mean. Right now, I'm in Claude right now. If I just look for my bootstrap slash command, you'll see that I have this one here, right? The ZP bootstrap create node project, which is this one, right? That you have on the screen. Now, I don't actually want to use that one. What I want to do is convert this into a skill. But why? because a skill is something that's now being recognized across the ecosystem, whereas slash commands is specific to Claude Code. So the key thing about skills is there's now a specification at agentskills.io, and the specification covers what the directory structure looks like, what the Skill.md format looks like, what the various optional fields are, and the metadata that you give it, which is basically all the fields that you can set as configuration, and so on and so forth. But because it's now an open standard, what ends up happening is it's already been adopted by OpenAI, and it's been adopted by VS Code, and it's already available in Claude Code, and so Cursor as well will have it. In fact, you will see if I open up my Cursor's LLM at this point in time, if I do skills, it'll tell you what skills are available, right? It's got all these skills already. So that would include skills that were there from my Claude Code installation or other skills that I've created and configured the system to recognize. So how do we do this? Well, let's start with, in this project, you'll see that under the plugins section, I have something called skills. And I'm going to create a new skills folder called, let's just call it Node Project Setup, right? And then I'm going to just tell Claude actually to create a skill using the create node project. I'm going to use the skill creator and say I want to convert that create node project into a skill in the skills node project setup directory. And I'm going to let Claude Code do its thing because it already has a skill to create a skill, which is all very meta. You'll see that Claude Code is now starting to plan. It's starting to say, well, let me understand the skill, let me plan which bits are reusable, and let me initialize the skill. And it's starting to write into the skills folder. It's writing a scripts and assets directory, and it's going to do a skill.md file, right? And it's starting to write all these things that it's going to say, do you want to make this edit? And I'm just going to say, yes, I accept all edits. That's fine. And you will see that it'll start to populate it under node project setup. But in the meanwhile, let's talk about what the directory structure is. So agent skills have a specific structure. Any directory that has all capitalized skill.md file becomes a skill that can then be installed into one of your systems. It's just literally a folder with one or more skill.md files and potentially 0 or more of these directories. So scripts, references, and assets are directories that are all optional, right? And how it works is there's progressive disclosure, which is another way I think of it as progressive discovery, which means the LLM doesn't load all the stuff up and fill its context up. It only loads what's necessary as and when it needs it. The skill.md file is actually all you need to create a valid skill, and it must have some front matter, which is metadata. If you've seen some other videos on slash commands and subagents, you would have seen what front matter is. So do go back and look if you don't know what it is, or check out the documentation. But ultimately, how it works is that these directories will allow you to put in extra data that you may want, right? So scripts will contain executable code, reference will be additional documentation that you then refer to in your skill.md and say, hey, if you want specific sub-skills, like the example in the documentations, if you want specific skills on the finance aspect or the legal aspect, depending on what the workflow is, you can look into these particular subdirectories or these files inside the references file. Everything under the references directory is basically further information that skills.md will point to and say, if you want more information on these topics, go here. And it'll only load it if it needs more information on those topics. And assets then contain static resources, just like for those of you who are web developers, you'll be familiar with this. It's just static pre-built content, images, diagrams, data files, and things like that. So that's kind of how you split it up. Scripts is what I end up using most often. Like I may write Python scripts or bash scripts and put it in that. And it'll only load that and run it when it needs it, right? Which is great. But in our case, and hopefully Claude's done now, hopefully by this point in time, you'll see that it's mainly just a skill.md that we need for our example today, which is converting this create node project. Now, I have a feeling that it looked like what Claude was doing was create a bunch of directories as well, like the references and scripts directory. I think it was mainly the scripts directory, and it was extracting certain specific scripts into that, which is perfectly valid. It just helps the progressive disclosure. It means that your big skills.md file becomes a smaller skills.md file, and then you do better progressive disclosure as and when you need. Okay, and now it says that it's created the skill and it's in node project setup, and you'll see that there's a top level skill.md. Let me close out the old one. Let me open up skill.md and we'll walk through it together very quickly. You'll see that it has some front matter, which is not going to show up in the preview on the side, but it basically tells you what the name is and what the skill description is. And if you take a quick look at the actual reference, you will see that the front matter has a name field, a description field, a license field, a compatibility field, metadata, and allowed tools field, right? I'm going to actually ask it to allow tools. So I accidentally started typing things over the skill.md and now I blew away my front matter. So I'm just going to say resume and restore front matter, because what I'd asked you to do was add the allow list of tools being things like read, write, and writing bash scripts, right? Or running bash scripts in the container. So I wanted to put that back in the front matter. While it's doing that, let's take a look at what this skill does. So it tells you what the skill does. Basically, it does a bunch of steps, initialize git repo, the same thing that we did in the /commands video, but now converted to a skill, and basically sets up an entire node project, including a README and the initial commit, and sets up your GitHub repo remotely using the GitHub CLI. So you need to have that installed if you're going to run it, and then it sends it all off to your GitHub. So your basic project is bootstrapped right away with no effort from you. All you got to do is give it the command. And then let's see what it's put into the assets file. So it's put assets as a standard gitignore.txt and a tsconfig.json, a recommended tsconfig.json. And that's because I said in my original /command, I'd said, give it a minimal tsconfig, not the whole big shebang. And I give it an example of a minimal tsconfig that I'd prefer. And so it's correctly put that in the assets section, right? Let's take a look at what's there in the script. So it's got a bootstrap shell file, and it's basically running all the various steps and giving the AI LLM an insight into all the bash scripts and bash steps required to do this. So for example, it has the git init stuff, it has the GitHub repo create stuff here, which is all very helpful because that's using the GitHub CLI command. These are all the things that I normally have to do manually, which I now no longer do because I have this skill. Basically, that's it. This is all a skill is. And you can see it's updated the front matter for me. And it said these are the allowed tools. And now this is actually ready to use, right? So in order for me to install and use this, what I need to do is I need to copy this across to my skills folder. So I'm going to go copy recursive to my Claude skills directory. Okay. And now if I list this, I should see it there. Yep, there it is, create node project setup, right? Now, all I've got to do is create a new Claude session. So I'm just going to run it here rather than go back to the old one. And what that's going to do is it's going to load all the skills, yeah? And I should see skills here, a list of skills. I should see, here you go, node project setup, okay? That's great. We always knew this was going to work with Claude. But let's see what happens when we try and make this work with Cursor. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reload the window because, well, Cursor needs to pick it up as well. I'm going to close out of all of this. I'm going to shrink my file tree on the left. That's fine. I'm going to switch to, let's use Gemini 3. Why not? Flash, okay? That's the agent I'm going to use. And I'm going to look for the skill. Right there it is, node project setup skill. And it gives you an idea of what the skill is. And I'm going to use that skill to say, create in this repo and call the project testing skills. And let's see what happens. I've actually not run this at all myself. It's going to, there you go. It's understanding that it has to use the skills, and it's decided that these are all the commands it's going to do. And it's got, it's asking me if that looks fine. And it's basically taking it from my skills. So I'm going to be like, yep, that's fine. Run it. And now we'll see that it's going to start running it up. It's basically going to create a new project for me as well called testing skills, right? Because you can see here that it's creating a GitHub project for me called testing skills, and it's going to be private because that's the configuration I gave it as part of the skill, is that it should be private. Okay, and there you go. A couple of seconds later, not even 5 minutes, it said the project testing skills has been bootstrapped. It's got the whole thing. So I'm going to cd into testing skills, and then I'm going to see git remote vv. There it is. It's created my repo called .com testing skills is the name of the repo. And if I look inside the folder, it will have everything. It'll have a README, it'll have a package.json. It's installed my node modules for me, and it's got a hello world. So if I do, I'm inside the right directory. So if I do npx tsx hello world, there you go, hello world. So I just bootstrapped an entire project using an agent skills, and that's all there is to it. More importantly, I was able to use it from inside Cursor. You can do it from inside VS Code, you can do it from inside OpenAI, you can use it with Codex as well if you like, because if you look at the OpenAI developers website, you will see that there's an agent skill definition, and it'll give you the same spec because it's a standard spec. The spec is all here in the agent skills.io specification URL, and then you can see that it's usable in VS Code as well. So really hope this was useful for you guys. If you got value out of this, please like and subscribe. Please leave comments. I try and respond to all of them. But in liking and subscribing, it helps me understand what you want and what you like and what you don't like. And then I get juiced to try and produce more educational content for you. Now, you can also check me out on my podcast, Easier Said Than Done, which is on Spotify and it's on YouTube and all of that. But I really hope that you guys start adopting AI into your tools. Don't fight it, because it is a fantastic force multiplier. And I got to tell you, I do more side projects now than I ever did before. And because in my career, I've started to do more management work, I spend less time coding these days than I used to when I started. But now I'm back to coding a lot now, or rather coding with AI a lot, because I can just move so much faster. All my weekend projects are back. It's a lot of fun. I encourage you to adopt this trend and become an AI-enabled engineer as fast as you can, because it is a life-changing way to code. It's so enjoyable, and there are lots of skills to learn. Okay, so I hope that helped. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.